What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Nacho Wrestling, and welcome back to Versus, the series where I pit two wrestlers against each other and take a look at some building blocks of professional wrestling and see which wrestler is the better overall wrestler out of the two of them. And in today's episode, we are taking a look at two of the legends of the sport, the icon, the incomparable Sting versus the Phenom, the Dead Man, the American Badass, whatever you want to call him, Mean Mark Calloway, also known as Undertaker. And we are going to be looking at, obviously, the standard 5 rounds and nothing more, nothing less. And we're going to see which one is the better wrestler. But before we jump into the 5 rounds, as always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date on all things Nacho Wrestling. And if this is your first time watching a Nacho Wrestling video, why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button and sharing this video with your friends. Like I said at the top of the video, this video will have 5 rounds to go over. Those 5 rounds are as follows, and just to note that these 5 rounds are based on my opinion, with the exception of round 3, where I use facts and statistics from cagematch.net. With that out of the way, the 5 rounds are: round 1, overall look and presentation; round 2, promo and mic talking skills; round 3, overall match quality; round 4, kayfabe accomplishments; and round 5, overall legacy. And with that out of the way, let's get on to round 1, overall look and presentation. So if we're going simply based off of grandiose presentations and big budget entrances and everything like that, of course Undertaker is going to get the win here. Undertaker has had probably one of the more memorable, or however you want to phrase that, entrances in all of professional wrestling since his debut back in Survivor Series 1995? 1993? 1990 something. I don't remember. I wasn't alive yet. But he has had great entrances from the American Badass era of his character to the Dead Man and everything in between, whereas Sting has had a bit more of a dull entrance, especially during his early Surfer Sting days, where he just kind of came out and fist bumped and did all the traditional, babyface stuff of the time. But of course, when he turned into the Crow Sting, he did a bit more of the dropping down with the harness and everything like that, which was cool. But if I'm not mistaken, he never did that during a match. Well, obviously he did that during a match, but it wasn't his entrance to the ring. He would walk down the ramp like any old Joe Schmo, but he wouldn't rappel down like the Blue Blazer style, for a match. So if he did it for a match once or twice, probably would have been really cool. Sort of fake out the opponent, let them think, oh, Sting's not showing, boom, lights go out, lights come back on, Sting rappels down. Just saying, would have been cool. Entrances aside, of course, that's not all we're grading this on. We have to take a look at everything that goes into overall presentation. So not only their gimmick, but their theme music and everything like that. And Taker's had some pretty iconic theme music. There's, of course, what he uses these days, which is like a Jim Johnston original, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's been edited a little bit by Def Rebel in recent years, but it is so wholeheartedly a Jim Johnston original. I don't even want to try and give Def Rebel any credit for it. But he's also used Rollin' by Limp Bizkit, and then of course he used American Badass by Kid Rock. American Badass, of course, it's okay song, not great. Rollin', on the other hand, I love Rollin'. Which is weird because I don't like the American Badass version of The Undertaker. Something about it just never really clicked with me and everything like that. And I feel like it kind of, how do I put this? It kind of ruins the mystique of The Undertaker. He should have never went back to the Dead Man stuff once he made the transition to American Badass. He should have stayed that way forever, and then maybe after 10 years of doing the American Badass stuff, or however long he did the Dead Man stuff for, maybe do the same amount of time of that as American Badass and then revert back. For all I know, he probably did do that, but it just never really sat well with me. How can this guy go from being a corporate minister, dead man, literal Undertaker, and then turn into a bike loving enthusiast MAGA goober. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's a bit weird. It's not the worst thing in the world, but compare it to someone like Sting, who did the surfer stuff, had the bright neon face paint, did all of that, was great, was fun, was a good, lovable baby face. And then when he realized it was time to turn the edge up, he turned the edge up. He became edgy. He became Crow Sting with the black and white face paint, the scorpion, everything like that. And he has stuck to that for the most part, with a few exceptions here and there, especially in the TNA days, which we'll talk about. But for the most part, he's stuck with the Crow Sting, the black and white face paint, everything like that. Maybe throw in a little red here and there or something like that, but nothing out of the ordinary. Before I give the winner of this round, if we're going to talk about overall look and presentation, we have to mention Sting's theme songs, which I know you're going to be like, Sting's theme songs? He didn't have anything that good. Well, my friend, he actually did have Seek and Destroy by Metallica for quite some time, even so much so that Tony Khan got to use it at All In London 2024 when it was him and Darby versus Swerve and Christian Cage in a coffin match, which was honestly one of the best moments of that year. Listening to the crowd sing Seek and Destroy, awesome. Very cool moment. With that, I'm going to have to give the round 1 win to Sting. I think Sting making the bridge from Surfer Sting to Crow Sting was a bit more feasible, a bit more believable in my head than Dead Man to American Badass, then back to Dead Man. I don't care how many times you do the Buried Alive match, that will not justify a full-on gimmick change, even if it's a supernatural gimmick. I just don't buy it. It just doesn't make sense, especially when they revert back to it again after losing another Buried Alive match. Could have been done a little differently. I think it hampers the mystique of Undertaker. This is not to say that Undertaker's look isn't iconic or anything like that. Obviously it is. And there's a reason that the Cavs had him show up in full attire during the finals back in 2017. End of round 1. Sting 1. Undertaker 0. What seems to be a never-ending feud between me and round 2 and finding it difficult to grade, I think a lot of this has to do with, for me personally, when it comes to wrestling, the promos, unless they are like 10 out of 10, like really good, really special promos, I don't really remember them. So it's hard for me to remember off rip who is the better talker compared to these two guys. Obviously, Undertaker has his catchphrase, which is rest in peace, and he has all these other one-liners that he will say during his promos and everything like that, and it works well. It really does work. Sting, on the other hand, has one iconic phrase, which does vaguely sound like Ric Flair's woo, but allegedly isn't. So, debate on that if you want in the comments below. Actually, yeah, you know what? Sound off in the comments below. Is Sting's woo any different than Ric Flair's woo, or is it just a bit more high-pitched and like tails off at the end? It's pretty similar. It's pretty similar. One thing to note is that for both guys, I remember their stuff a little later on in their careers than I do their early stuff, and that may be because that's what I grew up with. But for example, I remember a lot of Undertaker's like pre-backstage era promos that he was doing. Like he would cut like promos like in vignettes and everything like that because he didn't want to show up for TV, like during that era of his WrestleMania matches. I remember those pretty well. I remember a lot of Sting's stuff from TNA, whether it be Main Event Mafia Sting or Joker Sting versus the Aces and Eights, or of course Steve Borden's stuff as well. But I remember a lot of Sting's TNA stuff in terms of talking, and maybe that's because he did a lot more talking then, but I just remember it. Not saying it's better than Taker's, but also not saying it's worse than Taker's, if that makes sense. Overall, I see the point going to Undertaker here, solely for the reason I stated at the top of this round. Undertaker's got a whole catchphrase, the rest in peace thing. Everyone knows it. Everyone, whenever they talk about wrestling and they say rest in peace, they automatically either repeat it or initially do it with the Undertaker voice, which if you don't know what it is, look it up. I'm not doing it for you. Actually, you know what? I'll hit it for the one time. Rest in peace. I'm going to try to do the eye roll. I probably look dumb as shit doing that. So obviously Undertaker has the rest in peace, but what does Sting have? Well, Sting has the howl, the woo, whatever you want to call it, which I just don't think is as iconic as the rest in peace line. So go ahead and give the point to Undertaker. Round 2 result, Sting 1, Undertaker 1. Time for my favorite round, the round where you can't complain because I use legitimate statistics from cagematch.net. It's the overall match quality round, and we are going to look at the biggest discrepancy in voting numbers so far because Undertaker is the most voted for wrestler on Cage Match, coming in at the number 1 spot. And then all the way down at the number 44 spot is, of course, Sting. You'd think this would lead to maybe a very big difference in the average rating for both guys, but it's actually a bit closer than you would think. Let's jump into it. Since we're tied, we'll start with The Undertaker. The Undertaker averages a boastful, impressive 9.40 on the boards, which is up there as one of the higher numbers we've seen, along with the likes of HBK and Bryan Danielson, who were sitting around the 9.6, 9.5 mark in their videos. Next up, we have Sting, who is just 0.20 away from Taker with a score of 9.20 on the dot, which for a wrestler who has a lot less votes, I would say about almost more than half the amount or less than half the amount of votes than Undertaker, 9.20 is pretty good. That means that the voting for Sting weighs a lot more than the voting for Undertaker because there are less votes to count, so the more 10s or 9s he has are going to weigh out more. And the same thing can be said with the 1s and the 2s that he gets. This is going to give the win to The Undertaker automatically. No need to sit here and try and quibble about numbers and say that, oh, Sting could have a higher average rating if he had more votes or yada yada blah blah blah. Neither here nor there for that. Undertaker is the better wrestler with a 9.40 rating, and Sting is not. So, you just kind of got to take him where you can get him. Round 3 result, Sting 1, Undertaker 2. This round is really unfair if we're being honest, because when it comes to kayfabe accomplishments, Undertaker is leaps and bounds ahead of Sting. Taker, of course, hosts an impressive 25-2 record at WrestleMania, which was 21-0 until Brock Lesnar beat it and snapped it at WrestleMania 30, and then Roman Reigns did it again 3 years later at WrestleMania 33. On top of the obvious WrestleMania record, Taker is also a 7-time world champion, which some might find surprising, but considering how many people were so popular during the Attitude Era and how many other guys were popular during the Ruthless Aggression Era, it kind of makes sense that Taker was above the belt for a long period of time and didn't really need it, or I guess maybe even didn't want it to a certain extent. On the other side, we have Sting, who in kayfabe is quite literally one of the dumbest and most unluckiest wrestlers ever in WCW, WWE, and TNA history. He not only has trusted Ric Flair about as many times as I can count on my hands, plus 10 more to that, he has also been subject to some of the shittiest screw jobs that painstakingly paint him out to be kind of a goofer, which whenever Hulk Hogan says something, I kind of treat it as kayfabe. So that whole thing about the fast count at Starrcade, not being told to be a fast count and being told to be a regular count, whatever it is, I still am confused about it to this day. Hogan's lying. Full stop. But Sting gets bitched out in that situation, doesn't even win the belt. When he finally does win the belt, he doesn't hold it for that long. This did not stop him from holding the belt multiple times though, as he was a 6-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, a 4-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and technically a 2-time NWA Champion per Wikipedia, so we'll count it. Now, on one hand, I could easily give this round to Sting and make the final round, the overall legacy, be a rubber match between the two of them, but in no good way could I sit here and lie through my teeth and tell you that I genuinely think Sting has the better kayfabe accolades than Undertaker. Taker, just based off the WrestleMania streak alone, how many of those matches were above title? How many of those matches didn't have a world title involved because the streak was enough? Aura. Infinite aura, infinite WrestleMania aura for life for Undertaker, and that's something that Sting just won't have. The one memory of WrestleMania we have for Sting is him getting bitched out by Triple H and the rest of DX. Kinda paints the whole picture there, if you ask me. Round 4 result: Sting 1, Undertaker 3. So this last round is not a necessity, but I think it's something that needs to be done even though Taker has the 3-1 lead, because will Taker be remembered as the more impactful, more influential wrestler for the future? To some, yes. To others, no. And then to a small group, who gives a fuck? In my heart of hearts, I truly believe that Sting will go down as the overall more loved, more revered wrestler. Not only for the things he did in the past, but the things he continues to do for the business and the, what's the word I'm looking for here? The prosperity of the business, helping it flourish, helping it do better by getting these younger guys, you know, to the promised land, helping them hone their craft, get better, and do things. Like, obviously the biggest example, of course, is Darby Allin, but you could look at all the work he did with other guys in TNA throughout the days, like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and the stuff he did with even Bully Ray to an extent. Like, I know Bully was super old at that point, but it was good stuff, you know. The stuff, like, he tried to get Magnus over in TNA, which that was a haul of an effort. So, you know, he did stuff, and I think he continues to do stuff that puts him on the right track to be remembered more fondly than The Undertaker. This is not to say that The Undertaker will never not be remembered or anything like that. I think Taker will go down as one of the more prolific professional wrestlers as well. But I think in terms of wrestlers who look up to emulate this guy or emulate that guy or be like this guy or anything like that, I think that they're going to look to Sting a little more than The Undertaker. I think a lot of comments recently, well, not recently, but in the past few years, Taker has made about the status of the locker room these days and how it wouldn't fly when he was in there, just kind of rubs wrestlers and even wrestling fans to an extent the wrong way, because it's like old heads with basketball. Man, nobody gives a shit about Bob Cousy. Shut up. We don't care. We're playing video games in the locker room now. We're having fun. We're not snorting lines off Hooker's ass anymore. We're getting down to business, okay? We're playing Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and then maybe a little Super Smash Brothers, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. What's so wrong with that? Round 5 result: Sting 2, Undertaker 3. Well, this is an outcome that even sitting here now and recording this, I don't agree with, because I love Sting. I'm always going to love Sting. But putting my Sting bias aside, I think Taker will be, if not already is, like the most synonymous name with WWE, like faithful fans that are like, I'm trying to figure out the right word, because I think Taker is one of the more synonymous guys, like up there with like Stone Cold Rock levels of synonymous. Like, you hear that gong and you know what it means. That gong, like the Undertaker gong, is used in sports arenas and everything like that. Like, I think Undertaker will go down as one of the most prolific guys and probably will be on a lot of people's Mount Rushmore in the next few years, because a lot of people are going to have nostalgia bait for him, which is fine. But Sting will also go down as one of these more iconic figures for diehards and casuals alike. I think one of the biggest reasons for this, and I'm surprised I haven't noted it before, but West Side Gun, using a lot of the old WCW, NWO era stuff in his clothing brand and apparel for Fourth Rope, and a lot of it does actually include Wolfpack Sting as well, which I think helps kind of get Sting's likeness and image out there to a completely different crowd that may have not known about Sting and may tune in to watch some old stuff and see how fucking cool he was. With that being said, let me know what you guys thought about the video down in the comments below. Let me know who you think the better wrestler is as well, Sting or Undertaker. Like I said, let me know about all that stuff down in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date on all things Nacho Wrestling, and I will see you guys next time.